Have you ever stood in a room full of people and still felt unseen? Like your voice didn't matter, your presence didn't matter, you didn't matter. Have you ever helped others again and again? But the moment you needed anyone, suddenly everyone forgot you existed. Have you ever whispered to yourself late at night, why does no one respect me? If even one of these feelings sounds familiar, then this story is going to feel like it was written for you. In a quiet valley town with wooden fences, dusty roads, and the sky so blue it almost hurt to look at, lived a young man named William Hart. William was kind, honest, hard-working, more helpful than any neighbor deserved, but for reasons he couldn't understand, people treated him as if he were made of air. They talked over him, they brushed past him. Children giggled behind his back. Shopkeepers rang up customers behind him as if he wasn't even in line, and neighbors walked by without a glance, without a nod, without a good morning. William wasn't loud. He wasn't pushy. He wasn't the kind of man who demanded attention, but he did long for respect. He just didn't know how to earn it. One warm morning, William carried a heavy sack of wheat toward the village mill. As he reached the town square, he noticed a group of village elders locked in a heated discussion about grain storage for the upcoming winter. William had a clever solution, something he discovered while helping a farmer the week before. He believed it could save the whole town from shortage. Gathering what little courage he had, he stepped closer. "Excuse me, I think I may have an idea that could help," he sighed softly, but he never made it past that sentence. One elder waved a hand sharply. "William, not now. The elders are talking." Another didn't even turn to look. "Please, don't interrupt." Their dismissal cut deeper than any insult. William stepped back, stunned. His fingers trembled. The heavy sack slipped from his hands, pristine open wheat spilling across the ground. People walked around him. No one stopped to help. Not one single person even asked if he was okay. That night, as William sat alone in his small, dark cottage, he finally reached his breaking point. The quiet kindness he had offered so freely had been met with nothing but silence and indifference. He looked at his reflection in a small pane of glass and saw not a man, but a shadow. He decided that if being kind and helpful made him invisible, then he would stop being kind and helpful. He would stop caring. He would become as cold and distant as the people who ignored him. He would finally learn to put himself first. The next morning, his neighbor, a frail old woman named Mrs. Gable, knocked on his door. "William," she pleaded, her voice trembling, "my fence has fallen in the night. The goats will ruin my garden. Could you please help me fix it?" For years, William would have dropped everything to help her, but this time something new and hard settled in his heart. He looked at her, his expression unreadable, and said, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Gable. I'm busy today." He closed the door, leaving her standing there, bewildered. The sound of her slow, disappointed footsteps walking away echoed in the sudden silence of his home. A strange mix of guilt and power washed over him. For the first time, AIG side note, days turned into weeks. William kept to himself. When he saw someone struggling to carry a heavy load, it looped to Hawaii. When the baker dropped a tray of bread, he walked past without offering to help. He stopped offering his ideas, his time, his energy. He focused only on his own work, his own needs, and a strange thing began to happen. The villagers started to notice him, not because he was kind, but because he was absent. The tasks he once did quietly and without thanks were now left undone, and their absence was felt everywhere. The mill wheel creaked, unrepaired. The community garden became overgrown with weeds. The paths were no longer cleared of fallen branches after a storm. The villagers, once so dismissive, began to whisper amongst themselves. "Where is William? Why isn't he helping?" They had taken his quiet contributions for granted, and now they were feeling the void he left behind. His silence became louder than his words ever were. They realized his kindness wasn't a given. It was a gift they had rejected time and time again. One afternoon, the same elder who had dismissed him so sharply in the square approached William. He looked humbled. "William, he began. "We were wrong. Your absence has shown us how much you truly do for this town. We need you." William didn't say yes immediately. He had learned a powerful lesson. Respect isn't given to those who beg for it, but to those who value themselves first. He had finally found his voice, not by shouting, but by choosing when to use it, and when to let his silence speak for him. And in that silence, he finally earned the respect he had always deserved. He knelt on the dusty road, scooping the grain with shaking hands, and whispered through a tight throat, Why does no one respect me? What am I doing wrong?" That was the first time in years he felt truly broken. That night, unable to sleep, William walked to the largest oak tree at the edge of town. The moon hung low, coating him in a silver light. He sat down at the roots, pulling his knees to his chest, and stared at the earth. For the first time in his life, he felt like giving up. Then he heard slow footsteps approaching. It was Mr. Alden, the oldest man in the village, a quiet, sharp-minded elder who had watched generations grow and fail, Lao and Lowe's, a man who saw things others ignored. Alden sat beside him with a soft grunt, resting his cane across his lap. After a long silence, he said, "Son, you don't earn respect by yelling, but you don't earn it by disappearing either." William lifted his gaze, confused. "I don't understand." Alden leaned back against the tree trunk. "There are 5 quiet forces in this world. William, master them, and people will respect you without you saying a single word." William blinked. 5 forces. Alden nodded. "These 5 forces are how the world decides who to listen to and who to ignore." Then, under the glowing moon, he began revealing them one by one. First, Alden tapped William's slouched shoulders. "Your posture. When you walk small, people see you as small. Stand tall, not arrogant, not stiff, just tall enough to show you value yourself. Your body speaks before you do. Let it say you belong." Second, he continued, is your pace. People who rush look lost. They seem panicked, desperate. But people who move with calmness look confident. Confidence walks slowly, deliberately. It shows you're in control of your time and your path. The third force is your gaze. Not staring, not forcing, just meeting someone's eyes naturally, like an equa. When you look down or away, you tell them you feel inferior. Eye contact tells people you see them, and more importantly, that you see your own worth. Fourth, and this one is powerful, is your listening. Most people listen only to answer. They're just waiting for their turn to talk. But rare people listen to understand. They absorb, they process, they truly hear. Be rare. When you make someone feel understood, you gain their trust and their respect. And the fifth and final force, Alden said, his voice dropping to a whisper, is your silence. In chaos, everyone talks. Everyone yells to be heard, but real strength shows in calm silence. It shows you're not rattled by the noise. When you wait, observe, and finally speak, your words will carry immense weight. People will lean in to listen. Alden placed a gentle hand on William's shoulder. These 5 forces, posture, pace, gaze, listening, and silence won't just change how others treat you. They'll change how you treat yourself. Respect starts from within, son. For the first time in his life, William felt a flicker of real hope. It wasn't about changing who he was, but about allowing his true self to be seen. The next morning, William woke early, washed his face, and looked at himself in the mirror. He stood straight, shoulders open, head up, not proud, not loud, just present. He walked out into the village, not with his old hurried shuffle, but with a calm, steady He met the eyes of the baker, offering a simple nod. He listened, truly listened, when a neighbor spoke to him, and in the quiet moments, he found a newfound strength. Something inside him had finally clicked, and slowly but surely, the world began to click with him. Have you ever felt invisible, like your voice is just a whisper in a crowded room, easily lost, easily ignored? Today, I want to tell you a story about a man named William, A man who felt just like that. He lived in a small village where he was practically a ghost. People would walk past him, sometimes even through him, without a second glance. His words would hang in the air, unanswered, unheard. It felt small, insignificant, and a deep ache for respect settled in his heart. One day, standing under the shade of an old, sturdy oak tree, a place where he often went to hide his tears, William made a decision. He was tired of being invisible. He decided he wouldn't beg for respect. He wouldn't demand it. He would become it. He believed there were invisible forces that governed human connection, and he was determined to master them. He started with the first force: presence. The very next day, William walked into the village, but differently. He pulled his shoulders back, lifted his chin, and walked with a taller, more confident posture. It wasn't arrogant, just self. And something shifted. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was there. People moved aside for him on the narrow path. A farmer who usually ignored him gave a slight nod. Someone else muttered a quiet hello. These were tiny changes, but for William, they stung with meaning. They were proof that the world was starting to see him. Buoyed by this small victory, he moved on to the second force. Time. William had always rushed, as if trying to shrink himself and get out of everyone's way. Now, he stopped. He moved deliberately, calmly, as if every step he took had purpose. He walked through the market square with an unhurried grace, and a strange thing happened. People didn't bump into him anymore. Children, who used to shove past him in their games, now ran around him. When he waited to buy bread, people didn't cut in front of him. They waited their turn. By simply respecting his own time and space, he was teaching others to do the same. The third force, however, was the one that truly began to change everything. William started holding eye contact, not in a challenging way, but gently, steadily. He'd look at people when they spoke, and when he spoke. One afternoon, he walked past the blacksmith's forge. The blacksmith, a man of few words and strong opinions, paused mid-swing, his hammer hovering in the air. He looked at William, really looked at him, and said, "William, you look stronger these days." William didn't brag. He didn't explain the journey he was on. He just offered a small, knowing smile. The connection was made, a silent acknowledgement of his growing presence. This led him to the fourth force, the one that softened hearts. Listening. William realized he'd spent so much time wanting to be heard that he'd never truly heard anyone else. So he started to listen. Really listen. When someone spoke to him, he gave them his full, undivided attention. He didn't interrupt. He didn't jump in with his own story. He didn't rush their words or finish their sentences. He simply created a space for them to be heard. And for the first time, people started opening up to him. Old Mrs. Miriam, a woman known for her sharp tongue who had once dismissed him with a wave of her hand, found him by the well one evening. In a quiet, hushed tone, she whispered, "It feels peaceful talking to you, William, like you actually hear me." Respect was growing, not loudly or dramatically, but naturally, like a plant turning towards the sun. Then came the test, the moment that would reveal the power of the fifth force: stillness. One afternoon, the entire village gathered in the square. The summer had been dry, and the well was running low. A water shortage was imminent. Panic set in. Voices rose, escalating into heated arguments. People shouted over one another, pointing fingers, placing blame. The square became a cauldron of chaos, and no one was listening, except William. He stood at the edge of the crowd, silent, watching, understanding the fear beneath their anger. He didn't add to the noise. He just held his ground, a calm anchor in a stormy sea. Gradually, the shouting subsided. People grew exhausted by their own noise, their throats raw, their anger spent. An uneasy silence fell over the square. In that very moment, William stepped forward. He walked to the center, as calm and routed as the oak tree he once cried beneath. He met there, iced the blacksmiths, Mrs. Miriam's, the farmers, the children's, and he said the simplest of sentences: "We can share the well one family per week." Silence. A different kind of silence this time. Not of exhaustion, but of consideration. Heads that were once bowed in anger slowly lifted. Faces turned toward him. Then, a slow nod from one person, then another, and another. A ripple of agreement spread through the crowd. Within minutes, the entire village had a plan. The same people who once ignored him, who once made him feel invisible, now waited for him to speak. By the time winter arrived, blanketing the village in snow, William was no longer invisible. He was a pillar of his community. He didn't force respect. He didn't demand attention. He simply changed himself from the inside out, and the world around him responded. This story teaches us a profound lesson. Respect doesn't start outside of you. It's not something you can take or demand from others. It begins inside. It begins when you respect your own posture, your own time, your own voice, and your own ability to be still. When you carry yourself with quiet dignity, the world can't help but reflect that dignity back to you. William didn't become powerful by shouting the loudest. He became powerful by becoming worthy of being heard. And the beautiful truth is, so can you. Thank you for listening. If this story touched your heart, subscribe